Welcome to the tutorial video on using Bootstrap. In this video, I'm going to talk about alerts. Alerts are one of a number of different component classes within Bootstrap. These allow us to define areas of content. For example, if we want to define a warning or convey information to a user, we can use component classes within Bootstrap to do that. Alert is one of these. Alert allows us to define a small area that is an alert, or a very quick conveyance of information. You'll notice over here on the right hand side I have some examples of that. Notice a simple alert, check it out, and these are all common usages of alert, that is small content areas. And again, these are component classes within Bootstrap, so ways we can define content areas and quickly give the user some information, an alert. Notice over here when we're looking at the code defined right here starting on line 14, we see right here that we're defining all of these alerts. And we're doing it in a similar manner that I introduced in the previous video. When we were talking about borders and background colors, and especially text colors, we were first defining its role and then defining its color next to that. So we're moving from left to right in specificity. We're first defining, for example, with borders, we were additive borders, and then we were defining colors, we were defining the color after that. So what it is, and then a greater specificity, moving left to right. And you'll see that similar setup right here looking at classes. First we define this as an alert, so that defines it as an alert within the CSS, and then the color we want, alert primary, and that's the first example right here. And notice these follow the same color schemes introduced in the previous video. When working with borders, when working with text, and when working with backgrounds, and now we're working with alerts, they all follow the same color categories. And again, that helps us unify our color schemes on our website, as well as starts to initially get us thinking about accessibility concerns as we define different ways to convey information through a unified response. We convey, for example, warning information in red or warning information in yellow, and have that consistent across our website when working with the Bootstrap framework. And of course, because everything's defined within CSS, we can go in and customize it if we want. But this allows us to initially get started with this framework and start to define these components and these colors in a unified manner that exists across our entire website when working with Bootstrap. So coming back to this code, I talked about moving left to right in specificity. We saw alert and then alert primary, defining first the initial name of this component, alert, and then the color context we wanted to use, alert primary. And notice right here, the initial alert is this border and everything right here, and then alert primary is the color scheme that it's using. Next to that is an interesting new data attribute, role equals alert. This helps Bootstrap know that this particular element is being used as an alert. Its role is acting as an alert. This is new but important when working with alerts and other components within Bootstrap. Sometimes we need to tell Bootstrap and the document as a whole that what we're using is not only defined color-wise and border-wise as a component, but also acts as that component. That is, its role is as a certain component. So see here, we're actually using a division class, a div. We're defining its class as alert and then alert primary, so that's how it appears, its presentation, but we're also starting to define its role and how it should act. So when we're working with alert components within Bootstrap, we need to also supply the data attribute role equals alert, and this lets Bootstrap know that this element is acting as an alert. Its role is an alert. So we see here for all of these examples, similar to in the previous video when I talked about moving in that specificity, again, like border and then border colors, and background and other colors, we're moving in specificity left to right. We're first defining the component and then defining the component's presentation, greater specificity. So we see here alert, and then the name of color categories, primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, all very similar to what we saw in the previous video. Again, these are consistent across Bootstrap, so it helps us, once we're aware of what they look like and how they work, to use them consistently throughout our entire design. And again, we need to define role equals alert when we use alerts. This helps Bootstrap be able to identify this certain element. Not only is it supposed to look like an alert, it's supposed to act like an alert as well. So we can define these various color schemes Again, moving in specificity from defining an alert to defining its color scheme. Well, because these are content areas within Bootstrap, it also gives us the ability to customize how it looks. So scrolling all the way down here, on line 46, we see alert content. So we can define the inner workings, the inner layout, that is, of an alert as well. So that we can use the basics of alert and then alert colors, moving in specificity again, so to define these, but we can also start to customize how we want alerts to look, and it gives us a greater ability to add some variety, add some customization to how we want these alerts to appear to users. So notice right here, this entire div right here defines, again, alert and then alert success. So we're moving in specificity from defining the component to defining the component's presentation. Again, role equals alert. We need to tell Bootstrap this element is going to act as an alert. Within that is some new HTML. So within alert, we can define different alert content areas. The first of which I have included here is alert heading. And I'll scroll down so we can see an example of that. Notice right here, alert content, defining this area, and then a heading, additional content, a break line, and then even more content. And this allows us, again, a greater flexibility when working with Bootstrap, and especially alerts. Alerts being content areas, components, gives us the ability to customize them. So we can use the class alert-heading to define a heading within an alert. And notice right here, it even uses the heading tag within HTML. We're defining an alert heading, the size we want, in this case H4, and then we can define content within that alert right here, additional content within paragraph tags, using a horizontal rule, and then paragraph tags. So we're defining the internal content of alert content. So using alert-heading, we can define a heading within an alert. So there are some classes then that allows greater customization of the alert class when working with it. Not only can we define, as this example right here on line 36, alert, and then alert dark, again moving in specificity, role again, and we can define some simple text, but we can start to customize it using alert heading in this case to define a heading. So finally, if we want alerts to be dismissible, that is, we want to quickly convey some information to the user and allow them to dismiss that alert, a very, very common approach when we're dealing with notifications, especially in websites, but more commonly in mobile applications. We want to quickly convey some information to the user, maybe some settings have changed, or a quick warning they're about to do something they probably shouldn't, but allow them to then dismiss that alert. So we're going to convey information, and then they can dismiss it. To help with that, Bootstrap has some built-in CSS classes to allow us to start to put this context together. Now, in greater complexity, we would probably use this with some mix of JavaScript, but this video doesn't necessarily cover that because we're just talking about using Bootstrap as a framework at the moment. So to start to do that then, we look back at these classes. Again, we move in specificity from left to right. So we have alert that defines the shape of this content. This component is an alert. Then we say alert warning that defines the presentation and layout of this alert. So it's an alert, but it's an alert warning presentation. And then next to that, I have alert-dismissible and then the word show. So alert dismissible flags this content as a dismissible alert. That is, it can be dismissed. Again, greater specificity. It's a component named alert. It is a component with the alert class. And then this presentation and layout is alert warning, and then it is a dismissible alert. So alert dismissible. Finally, show is one of a number of different utility classes within Bootstrap. This is just one example of this. The other reverse example would be hide. So we could initially hide some content using that class. So we can show it, this is initially being shown, or hide it. And this allows us to define some HTML within the document. Hide it, that is, don't quite show it to the user, fill in that information using JavaScript or some other means, then show that notification to the user, and then when it's dismissed, hide it again. So we moved back and forth between being shown and being hidden using this very quickly using these utility classes. So its component is an alert. This is an alert with the CSS class alert. Its presentation is alert warning. It is dismissible, alert dismissible, and it's currently being shown. Now, if we did not have show, there's a possibility we wouldn't see this. So we want to just make sure this is shown to the user. So show is the last one here. Again, role equals alert. This content is acting as an alert. Its role is alert. Notice I've defined a hyperlink within this. Similar to when we were looking at alert headers right here, we can define content within alerts to customize it, as I mentioned above. So if we want this to be dismissible, we have to add something that we can interact with to dismiss it. That is, of course, now it is using alert-dismissible. It's dismissible, but there needs to be some type of interaction to dismiss it. Just giving that CSS class gives it the possibility of being dismissible, but we need to do something. The user has to click on something, click on a word, or click on an X, or do something to dismiss it. And so that's what the data dismiss attribute is right here. So we define this link right here. Going to an ID, there's no ID specified, so it's just an empty one. So we want to say when user clicks on this, what happens? Well, right here, data dismiss, so it's going to act on some type of data, something, and the data dismiss it is working on is alert. So this connects this link to this class it is within. So when we click on alert, we click on this link, it acts on the alert. So the data dismiss attribute works on whatever it is tied to. In this case, it is tied to alert, tied directly to the class it is within. So when we click on this, it will data dismiss its class that is within. And I can show that right here. So click me to dismiss this alert. This is the link right here under interactions. If I click on this, it dismisses the alert. Now it dismissed it by switching the show class to hide. So we swapped right there from show to hide, and now we don't see it anymore. So alert dismissible allows us to flag this content using a CSS class as possibly dismissible, but again, we need that interaction. So we use the data dismiss by putting it on something, in this case a link, but it could also be a different interaction, to dismiss this alert. The alert acts to whatever is associated with that class. So we're going to data dismiss an alert. The alert is the content it is within. So in this video, I've talked about alerts in a number of different ways, and reviewed how an alert is a component within Bootstrap. It defines some type of content area. When we saw right here, moving in specificity, we define an alert first using the alert CSS class, and then we can define its layout and presentation using the standard color names that are within Bootstrap, so alert and then alert primary in this case. And then, as I've talked about multiple times in this video, when we have an alert, we need to tell Bootstrap that this element is acting as an alert, and so we define its role attribute as well. Its role is an alert. So we saw in all these examples, we can define alert, and then define color to define its layout and presentation using the built-in color classes, as reviewed in the previous video. Down here, we talked about how we can customize alerts by looking at alert content, and we noticed we used alert-heading to define a heading within the alert, as well as additional paragraphs to give more information to the alert. So we could give a quick burst of information, a few words, or a greater context to the alert, and add in headings, paragraphs, and customize the alert to our content. Finally, we talked about how we can interact with these alerts by giving it the alert-dismissible class. And again, specificity, this is an alert component, its presentation is alert warning, it is dismissible, and it is shown, and I talked about the difference between show and hide as utility classes within Bootstrap. Finally, I talked about how we use the data dismiss attribute to, within some interaction, in this case a click, to dismiss something that has the alert dismissible class. So we dismiss the alert by using the data dismiss attribute on some interaction, in this case a click, to dismiss that alert. Thanks for watching.